So I'm going to break it into three. So let's start from regulatory ecosystem, which is the fintechs and the community. If I even want to extend it to the wider fintech, so it might not necessarily be financial processor, but even a fulfillment that leverages fintech. And then let's look at it from also the end state of it. So from a challenge perspective and into solution, in regulation, we have three things. We have two things that matter. Conduct. The conduct aspect is actually the burden of the ecosystem. I think the firms should be responsible for conduct. That way we will solve the challenges of the ecosystem. So what do I mean by conduct? For example, making sure that we act in integrity, making sure that in integrity we have the right financial crime controls, we have the right onboarding controls or protocols, making sure that we have the right money laundering programs in place. If we did that, then the next is to come together as an ecosystem, and as an ecosystem have common standard protocols. So from a consumer perspective, how do we ensure that consumer behavior is optimal? Through common standard protocols. Making sure we have common terms agreement on how we work with each other. Data sharing, my colleague talked about data sharing. So if we do these things, then we're helping build the ecosystem from the reverse. And we're taking that burden off the regulator. Then on the regulatory side, I think there are two critical things that the regulator should do. The first thing, obviously, is to lay out the objectives of the regulation, be it fintech, be it AI, whatever it is. Laying out the objectives also almost makes it seamless in implementation. I think in the case of Ghana, we've been fortunate that our Payment Systems Act almost pretty much lays out that objective. The second thing that's very critical is then to make sure that we have the oversight. Now, oversight, I'll break it into two: the control function, and then, of course, the non-control function. So in terms of control function, making sure we have the right compliance protocols in place. There are some layers of compliance that should come from the regulator into an ecosystem, and then there are some layers that the ecosystem will develop by itself. Then, of course, if you take a risk, what is the control risk that from a regulatory standpoint is a no-no and is a yes? Then we embed that into ecosystem. I think if we did that, then we'll have a good marriage. That will solve the challenges that potentially will come up or exist in. At the same time, we'll foster the growth of the ecosystem.